So, where to begin with this film, eh? This is absolutely the worst Mission Impossible movie. Let me explain why. Right, so Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. I don't think I've ever seen a Mission Impossible movie have so much melodrama, so much self seriousness, so much lack of self awareness. Now, everyone's been banging on about the first hour of the film, which is without giving away too much, a real slog. We have flashbacks, fast forwards, flashbacks, fast forwards, flashbacks, and fast forwards, and so much exposition that you think you're watching an episode of Columbo.
Oh, listen, there's one other thing I wanted to ask you about.
Honestly, this film's first hour is such a slog to get through. Now, there's ways of doing exposition dumps. You can do it like this, how The Matrix did it, which is absolutely perfect because it's interwoven within the story, or you can do it like this.
This is Katana. She's got my back. I would advise not getting killed by her. Her sword traps the souls of its victims.
Which is just a huge piece of information from different characters being dumped onto your doorstep. Non-stop, dump, 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 dump. This is how you literally farm diarrhea. This is a diarrhea dump non-stop. Information smashed into your face. But I must say, information that we don't even need. A lot of the information is information that if you've seen the films already, if you're a fan of the movies, you already know. You already know all this information, so you don't need to be told it all over again. With flashbacks and fast forwards and monologues, and it's just so bad. But I already knew that going into the movie, so that's fine. I was aware of that. In fact, to make sure that I avoided that, I purposely turned up 10 minutes late to the film. So that wasn't even an issue for me, to be honest with you. I knew it was coming. I'd read other reviews. I'd seen other people's reviews. I knew that was coming. However, when it does come, it comes hard.
Ideally expecting a facial.
Look, wrong video. But then putting that to one side, when the second act kicks in, you think the action's going to really begin. And believe me, the action does begin. There's so much action. There's lots and lots of action. There's action upon action. There's some talking, but there's lots of action. And in fact, Act 3, there's more action. There's action. There's action. There's action.
What?
Here's the problem. I don't want the action.
What the
I do not want the action. Do you know what I really want? I want a bloody storyline. I want a clear, defined storyline. Because the things that make the Mission Impossible movies great, for the most part, is how the action scenes are framed by the storylines. Now, they're not the greatest storylines ever, but at least there's something to root for. In this specific film, after you get the first hour of all this posturing and exposition, and we then have these action sequences that have no formation to them. They just happen. And when they happen, I'm going to be wholly honest with you, they're not even that good. Now, what makes a great Mission Impossible scene? The ones that stick out to me are the toilet scene here, the bike chase here, the whole setup and payoff of the first Mission Impossible film. The first 20 minutes of that film is tremendous. I know some people love this helicopter scene with Henry Cavill. Or what about Tom Cruise running through the streets of wherever he is here? Now, the issue I have with the action scenes in this movie is that they all take place in just nondescript locations, like a submarine. I can't get the scope and the scale of a scene taking place in a submarine. Not to mention the fact that in this scene, you get a lack of Benji's voice. You get a lack of direction. So I really have no idea what's going on in this scene. You also get this scene on a plane, which really looks spectacular and feels really good when you're watching it. But you do think to yourself, it is a plane, and there's very limited things that can happen on a plane. And that's exactly what happens. Very limited things happen. It is death-defying. It is edge-of-seat stuff in the sense that you think, how the hell did Tom Cruise do this? But it is ultimately a bit of a disappointing action sequence. And this goes for every single sequence in the film. They all take place on a thing. They don't take place in an area or in a country or in a city. They all take place on a thing. But ultimately, what this film really, really lacks is any sense of humor, any sense of self-awareness. It takes itself so seriously. I would say 90% of this film is our main actors almost crying, delivering lines with such pathos that makes you think that they were doing a script reading for Othello.
Othello, motherfucker!
But they're not. It's Mission Bloody Impossible. The movies that make no sense, the movies that have no consequence. Now, the biggest issue with the film, aside from those things, there's a lot of big issues here, is the fact that the film commits the biggest sin of saying this is end of world stuff. Now, I don't know where it was that Mission Impossible started doing this. If this doesn't happen, the world will end type thing. I think it probably was in the last movie, but if anyone can think of another movie where it happened, let me know. I'm just kind of going off the cuff here. It's really a thing you should avoid. You should avoid it at all cost because there's no way in the world your film should be all about this end of world thing. Now, every now and again, the Marvel movies tend to do this. So do the DC movies. But really, you should avoid them because it's not a good way of storytelling, especially if you can't get the scale and the scope of what's going to happen in hand. And this movie definitely does not do that. I never at any point really believed the world was going to end. It's just more melodrama to make you think that everything's happening is really, really important. Now, I love the first part of this two-part series. Maybe my second favorite Mission Impossible movie after the first one. This movie, though, it just drags. It's too long. It's overstuffed with real self-importance, real lack of self-awareness, real melodrama, characters on the verge of crying their eyes out. This cast as well, they are not good. I'm sorry. I do like Haley Atwell. I do like Simon Pegg. I do like Tom Cruise. Angela Bassett's always good. Nick Offerman's okay. I mean, the individual parts are fine, but as a collective, I just don't feel it at all. And one of the things I've always loved about the most recent Mission Impossibles, at least, is the humor. We have these events happening that are very important in terms of the narrative of the timeline and in terms of these real world events that are happening. But at least there's always been moments of humor. Benji's saying something funny, or Tom Cruise realizes that maybe he's bitten off more than he can chew. There's always the little light moments in these movies. This movie is a slog for many reasons, but one of the main reasons is it just takes itself so seriously. I didn't laugh at any moment in this movie. And of course, it's not a comedy, but still, I want to have a little bit of a chuckle. I mean, give me some relief.
Ideally expecting a facial.
Honestly, this movie is not good. And I don't like saying that because I do like Tom Cruise. I do like these movies. I do like action movies, as you probably know from watching my channel. But this movie is overstuffed. It's self-serious. It's melodramatic. It is too long. It's humorless. Now, before we leave, I just want to talk about the editing in the movie. I thought the editing is sometimes fantastic and sometimes really bad. And one of the reasons I say that is because there's so many flashbacks in this movie, so many flash forwards that give away the plot before you've seen the plot. Sometimes they're used as misdirects, but a lot of the time they actually come to fruition. And therefore, when you're watching the movie, you're thinking, I know what's going to happen next. And it typically does happen. And I have to say, one of the great joys of the last movie was the real standout performance from Klementieff, who was absolutely fantastic in the first Mission Impossible movie. And this is a spoiler, she appears in this movie and she's awful. She's awful. She's annoying AF. Every single line of dialogue is delivered in French. And this makes no sense because now she's part of this little team that Tom Cruise has assembled and they all speak English. Yet, for some reason, she's doing all her dialogue in French. And for some reason, they all understand what she's saying. And for some reason, she understands what they're saying. So why don't you just speak English? Anyway, listen, I'm going to give this movie a 5. It's a huge disappointment. I actually want to give it a 4. I'm going to give it a 4. It's a huge disappointment. It's too long. I hate movies that are too long. I really do. I don't mind if a movie is about something really epic and it has the scope to be a 3-hour movie. But this does not have the scope for that. Now, I really believe the movie really thinks it does have the scope for that. No doubt about that, which explains the self-seriousness of the plot and the acting and everything, the music and everything, but it doesn't really have the scope. Believe me, it should be a nice, tight 2-hour to 2-hour 15-minute movie. Just condense the action scenes. However, even if it did that, these action scenes really are not that impressive. I'm thoroughly disappointed. Listen, have you seen Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning? Will it be the last reckoning? Highly unlikely. But what do you think? Have you seen it? Hit the like button. I love you guys. Big love. Speak to you soon.